Service Design Made Simple is a practical, no jargon guide for students, professionals, and changemakers who want to create better, more human centered services. Whether you're improving a hospital intake process, redesigning a digital experience, or rethinking how citizens access public programs, this series will walk you through step by step the service design process from research to real world implementation. It's grounded in real tools and everyday examples. We cover everything from stakeholder mapping and journey design to prototyping, testing, and measuring success. Learn how to uncover user needs, co create with frontline staff, and bring new service ideas to life with confidence and clarity. This is perfect for students exploring human centered design or systems thinking, professionals in healthcare, education, government, or tech, as well as team leaders and other teams driving change from within. So, whether you're new to service design or looking for a refresher, this series will help you design services that work for everyone. Understanding service design. We live in a service driven world. From the moment we wake up and interact with a mobile app to order coffee or visit a clinic, attend a class, or call a help desk, our daily lives are shaped by services. And yet, many of these experiences feel disjointed, inefficient, or impersonal. That's where service design can come in and help. Service design is the craft of intentionally creating or improving services to be useful, usable, desirable for customers, and effective, efficient, and sustainable for organizations. It is not limited to customer facing roles or digital experiences. It encompasses everything behind the scenes systems, processes, people, and policies that enable a service to function smoothly. At its core, service design is a human centered, holistic, and collaborative approach to solving complex service related challenges. It's about designing services that work better for everyone involved. This includes customers, frontline staff, and even the back end teams who keep things running. Unlike product design, which typically results in a tangible object, service design creates experiences that are often intangible. You can't hold a service in your hand, but you can feel its impact. Think of service design as creating the blueprint for how an experience unfolds across time, space, and interaction points. There are several key principles of service design. These act as guiding values to ensure that the process remains thoughtful and inclusive. One is that it's user centered. Always start with understanding real people's needs, behaviors, and emotions. Services should be designed from the perspective of the end user, not just organizational convenience. Two is that they're co creative. Great services are rarely created in isolation. Service design encourages collaboration across departments, stakeholders, and most importantly, the users themselves. Three, it's holistic. A service is not just a moment in time, it's a journey. Service design considers the entire ecosystem around the service, including channels, touch points, and the backstage teams and systems. It's iterative. Service design is not linear, it's a cycle of testing, learning, and refining. Prototypes are built quickly, and feedback is gathered, and changes are made continuously. And lastly, fifth, it's evidence based. Good service design relies on research, observation, and data. Assumptions are tested and replaced with insights from real people. So, what's the difference between service design and product design? Well, product design focuses on what people use. So, that's a toothbrush, an app, a smartphone. A service design focuses on how they interact with the service over time. For example, consider a hospital visit. The product design might focus on the patient's mobile check in or the wearable device tracking vitals. The service design considers the entire patient journey from the moment they book an appointment to the follow up care and billing process. Product design tends to have clear boundaries. Service design is messier. It involves multiple actors, systems, and often invisible processes. And yet, that complexity is where the real impact lies. A helpful way to think about service design is through five key dimensions, often referred to as the five Ps. P1 is people, the users, staff, and stakeholders involved in delivering and receiving the service. Processes are the workflows and activities that make the service happen. Props are the tools, technology, and physical or digital artifacts used during the service. Places are the environments where the service occurs, which could be physical, digital, or a hybrid of mix of places. Partnerships are the organizations, suppliers, or entities that play a role in the delivery, and it could be a number of partnerships involved in one single service delivery. Designing all of these ensures a well rounded and resilient service that works in the real world, not just on paper. Why service design matters. In a world where expectations are rising and resources are often stretched thin, service design offers a structured way to reduce friction and frustration, improve outcomes and experiences, enhance employee satisfaction, align internal processes with external needs, save time, money, and effort in the long run. Service design is especially valuable in complex settings like healthcare, education, government, and technology, where multiple stakeholders interact and where a misstep can lead to serious consequences or lost trust. By the end of this series, you'll have a practical toolkit for applying service design in your own work, whether you're a student learning the ropes or a professional looking to improve experiences or a leader driving change in your organization. Now let's talk about the service design process. Designing a service might seem overwhelming at first. So many moving parts, touch points, and people to consider. Fortunately, service designers don't start from scratch each time. Instead, they follow a structured design process that help teams navigate complexity, stay user-centered, and move from insight to implementation in a logical, repeatable way. One of the most widely used frameworks for service design is called the Double Diamond, which was developed by the UK Design Council. It breaks the process into four clear stages: discover, define, develop, and deliver. Let's walk through each. The discover phase is where you understand the problem. This is about exploration. Instead of jumping to solutions, teams seek to deeply understand the user's context and underlying problems. This is where research plays a central role. The key activities are conducting user interviews and observations, mapping user journeys and touchpoints, gathering internal and external stakeholder input, identifying pain points, unmet needs, and systemic issues. The goal is to generate empathy and insight, as well as challenge assumptions. The define phase is the framing opportunity. So this is where teams synthesize what they've learned to clearly define the core problem or opportunity. This helps avoid solving the wrong problem and guides ideation later on. The key activities are cluster research findings into themes, identify root causes and opportunity areas, create how might we questions, prioritize based on impact and feasibility. The goal is to frame the challenge with clarity, build alignment among stakeholders. The third phase is to develop. That's where you actually create the solutions. You can ideate, sketch, prototype, and develop any possible solution at this phase. This is where creativity meets constraints and ideas begin to take form. The key activities are running brainstorming and co creation sessions, developing prototypes, which could be low or high fidelity or anything in between. They offer an opportunity to storyboard service flows and testing early concepts with real users. The goal is to explore multiple ideas and learn quickly through making. Fourth deliver phase is bringing the solution to life. This final phase focuses on testing, refining, and implementing the most promising solutions. It's also when the service designers work closely with operational teams to ensure the experience can be sustainably delivered. The key activities are conducting pilot tests and usability studies, gathering feedback and refining the ideas, planning implementation and staff training, then finally launch and monitor. The goal is to create real world impact, deliver value to users and the organization. There are a few other common design models, such as the design thinking 5 stage model, which has 5 steps. So, empathize, where you understand the user needs, define, is where you frame the problem, ideate, where you generate ideas, prototype, where you build representations, and then test, learn what works and improve. This model is widely used in educational settings and innovation teams, offering a flexible structure that supports experimentation and iteration. There's also the service creation lifecycle. Particularly in public service or enterprise settings, they use a more formal framework that includes discovery and feasibility, alpha, beta, and then live. So the alpha would be experimental and released to only a few users. The beta would be tested with real end users. And then live is when you actually implement your operational product or service. Each phase requires validation and stakeholder buy in before advancing. Iteration matters. No matter which model you choose, one truth is always holding true. Service design is not linear. You may need to go back and conduct more research after testing an idea. Stakeholders may shift priorities mid project, requiring a redefinition of the problem. Implementation may reveal new issues that affect the service blueprint. That's why iteration is built into every good design process. It's not about getting it perfect the first time, it's about getting it better every time. Also, these processes build confidence. Too often, organizations jump straight from problem to solution without understanding the full context. The result is misaligned services, frustrated users, and wasted time and resources. The service design process provides a disciplined, collaborative, and creative way to solve real world problems. It gives teams confidence that they're working on the right things in the right way with the people who matter most, those who will actually use the service. By mastering the process outlined, you'll be better equipped to lead or contribute to any service design initiative, regardless of your role. Now let's dive into research and discovery. The foundation of great service design is a deep understanding of how the people you're designing for and the systems they interact with. This is where research and discovery come in. In this phase, you will gather insights that inspire and shape everything else you do. Rather than relying on assumptions or internal opinions, service design begins with curiosity and observation. The goal is to uncover unmet needs, pain points, and opportunities across the entire service experience. Every service is embedded in a complex web of human behavior, institutional process, and contextual nuance. Without research, we risk building services that solve the wrong problems, ignore the real user experience, and reinforce broken systems. Research doesn't have to be formal or academic, it needs to be structured, intentional, and grounded in empathy. Whether you're redesigning a city permit process or improving a digital booking system, research helps you ask the right questions and avoid costly mistakes. There are two main types of research used in the discovery phase. One is qualitative research, and that's where you gain a deep understanding. To do this, you could do interviews, which are one on one conversations to uncover user motivations, expectations, and frustrations. You could do observation or shadowing, which is where you watch how users actually interact with the service in real settings. You could also do service safaris. That's where you experience the service yourself or that of a competitor to gain firsthand insight. And contextual inquiry. That's talking to users while they perform real tasks and capture details that might go unnoticed. The goal is to understand why people do what they do and gain empathy. Two is quantitative research. You could do this using surveys or polls. So, broader data from many users will identify trends and validate assumptions. You could do analytics through either website or usage data that shows drop off points, traffic flows, or behavioral patterns. You could also capture operational metrics, so that's service wait times, resolution rates, satisfaction scores. The goal is to understand what is happening, identify patterns, and scope. In most projects, a combination of both qualitative and quantitative approaches offers the best picture. To design or improve a service, you need to understand the bigger picture. Start by identifying your users. Who are they? What are their goals, needs, and contexts? Stakeholders, internal and external actors involved in delivering the service. Touch points, each place the user interacts with the service, online, offline, human, automated, etc. Channels, where and how are users accessing the service? Is it mobile, in person, or a call center? Backstage processes are what happens behind the scenes to enable the service. These elements come together to form a service ecosystem, which you can then use to visualize the stakeholder maps and service blueprints. Here are some of the most useful tools to use during the research and discovery phase. Stakeholder mapping. This helps identify everyone involved in the service, their relationships, and influence. It's useful for understanding complexity and planning interviews. Empathy maps. This captures what a user thinks, feels, says, and does. It helps teams synthesize qualitative insights and humanize user data. Personas. Semi fictional profiles based on research that represent user archetypes. Personas help anchor the design process in real user needs. Journey mapping. This visualizes a user's experience over time, identifying pain points, emotional highs and lows, and areas for improvement. Service safaris encourage designers and team members to walk through the service like a customer, documenting observations and emotional responses. Here are some tips for conducting effective research. Be present, not just prepared. Have a plan, but stay open to surprise. Record everything. Use photos, notes, and audio if possible. Ask open ended questions. Avoid leading questions or assumptions. Look for emotion. Moments of frustration or delight are critical design opportunities. And research with, not just on people. Involve users as collaborators where possible. Then it's making sense of your findings. Once your research is complete, the real work begins. You have to synthesize the insights. This means sorting raw data into patterns and themes, looking for root causes, not just symptoms, identify opportunities for improvement and for design, and then distilling findings into clear, actionable takeaways. These insights will become the foundation for problem definition in the next phase of the design process. Research and discovery aren't just checkboxes, they are where empathy, insight, and opportunity converge. By investing time in understanding the people and systems behind the service, you'll set your project design up for success. Now let's talk about defining the problem. After immersing yourself in research and discovery, you'll likely have mountains of notes, recordings, quotes, and observations. But research alone doesn't lead to change, clarity does. The next step in the service design process is to synthesize what you've learned and define the real problem to be solved. This is a critical turning point. If you define the problem poorly, you'll waste time designing the wrong solution. If you define it clearly and insightfully, your service design work will be focused, relevant, and impactful. Why problem definition matters. Many organizations fall into the trap of jumping straight to solutions. We need an app. Let's add a chatbot. Let's redesign the website. But without first understanding what people actually need and what's actually broken, you risk building features nobody wants or solving symptoms rather than root causes. Service design slows things down briefly to make sure you're solving the right problem for the right people in the right way. From raw data to insights. Your first task after research is to turn data into insights. This involves reviewing and clustering your findings. Use sticky notes or digital tools to group similar observations. Look for emerging themes or repeated challenges. Identify contradictions or surprises. What are people's expectations not being met? Are there any moments of truth where the service fails or excels? Spot the gaps and opportunities. What are users trying to do but can't? What's causing unnecessary friction? There are a number of tools for synthesizing insights. Affinity diagrams are a simple yet powerful way to group research notes by themes. These help teams make sense of large amounts of qualitative data and find patterns. There's also journey mapping. This is where you can go deeper into the journey maps, use your real user data to annotate pain points, questions, emotions, and barriers across time. There is root cause analysis, like the 5 whys. So that's where you, instead of treating symptoms, you ask why over and over again to uncover deeper systemic issues. So an example is, why are customers abandoning support chats? Because the wait is too long. Why is the wait too long? Because the chat bot handles too many questions, and so on and so on. Craft your POV statement or point of view statement. Once you've synthesized insights, articulate them in the form of a POV statement. This helps frame the user's needs clearly and guides ideation. It typically follows this format. User needs a way to do X because of Y. For example, newcomers to Canada need a way to understand how to access health services because they often face language and system navigation barriers that delay essential care. This format focuses on the real people, not internal goals or technologies. To generate how might we questions, once your POV is clear, you can generate the how might we questions to begin opening up the solution space. These are optimistic, generative prompts that help teams explore ideas without jumping straight to solutions. Some examples are, how might we make healthcare services more navigable for newcomers? How might we reduce wait times without reducing care quality? How might we support frontline staff to better explain the system? A good how might we question is broad enough to invite creativity, but focused enough to be actionable. Not every insight leads to action, especially when resources are limited. Consider these criteria when choosing which problems to focus on. Impact. Will solving this issue create meaningful value for users? Feasibility. Can we realistically address it with the current resources and systems? Strategic alignment. Does it support organizational goals? Urgency. Is this a pain point users are feeling acutely right now? You can use a prioritization matrix like impact versus effort to help visualize what to tackle first. There's also some common pitfalls to avoid, like vague problem statements. If the problem isn't clearly defined, your team will drift in different directions. Jumping to solutions. Resist the temptation to ideate before you've done proper synthesis. Design for everyone. Focus on specific users and scenarios, not generic or vague averages. Defining the problem is about moving from complexity to clarity. It's the bridge between understanding the user experience and reimagining it. By crafting strong POV and how might we questions, you lay the groundwork for innovative, people-centered service design solutions. Now let's talk about designing the service blueprint. Once you've defined the problem and identified promising opportunity areas, it's time to bring structure and clarity to the full service experience. This is where the service blueprint comes in, a powerful tool that helps visualize how a service actually works, both on stage, which is what the user sees, and backstage, which is what supports it behind the scenes. A service blueprint acts like an architectural plan for the experience. It maps not just the user's journey, but also the internal operations, systems, and touch points that make the journey possible. A service blueprint is a diagram that lays out the entire service process, from the user's actions to the underlying support systems. It shows the steps the user takes when engaging with the service, the visible touch points they interact with, the front stage employees or interfaces delivering the service, the backstage processes and support functions, and the infrastructure and systems enabling everything. It's a bird's eye view that connects customer experience to organizational delivery. So, why use a service blueprint? To break down silos and show how different departments or systems contribute to the service, to identify failure points and inefficiencies, to visualize dependencies and design smoother experiences, and to communicate clearly with stakeholders across different disciplines like operations, finance, IT, HR, leadership, etc. Service blueprints are especially helpful when you're redesigning a service or planning implementation because they ensure you're not just designing the visible layer, but also the invisible mechanics behind the scenes that make it work. There are several key elements of a service blueprint. They typically are arranged in horizontal swim lanes from top to bottom, one being user actions, which is what the user does at each stage of the journey, like books an appointment, calls a help desk, checks in at a kiosk, etc. Two is the front stage interactions. This is any part of the service the user can see, whether it's a digital interface, a person, or an environment. Third is the backstage actions, what staff or systems do behind the scenes to support the front stage experience. So that could be confirming appointments, updating records. Fourth is the support processes. These are the deeper layers such as internal workflows, third party systems, databases, or logistics services that enable delivery. Fifth is the physical or digital evidence. These are artifacts the user receives or interacts with. Could be an email, receipt, or confirmation page, or signage. There are several steps to build a service blueprint. Step one is to define the user scenario. Choose a specific journey to map. Keep it focused, a single journey from start to finish. For example, applying for a student loan or onboarding a new employee. Step two is map the user actions. Plot out the sequence of actions the user takes to complete the task. This forms the spine of the blueprint. Step three is to identify front stage interactions. For each user action, list what they interact with: a human, an interface, a physical environment. Step four is add backstage layer and support layers. Map what staff or systems are doing behind the scenes to enable each touchpoint. Include systems, approvals, and communication. Step five, include artifacts and evidence, any documents, notifications, or deliverables that the user receives at any stage. And step six, highlight emotional and pain points. So this could be color coding or annotating areas of friction or opportunity, and include highs and lows to help guide design priorities. Here are some key tips for effective blueprinting. Use real data from research, don't rely on assumptions. Involve cross functional teams in the process. Keep it legible and clean, don't cram everything into one view. Use colors, icons, and swim lanes to distinguish layers clearly. Start low fidelity, even on paper, and then digitize with tools like Miro or Visio. When do you use a service blueprint? So you could use it during the discovery phase to map how the current service works. You could use it during co-creation workshops to help identify gaps. You could use it as part of a handover to operations to align to delivery teams. You could use it during change management to communicate new workflows or policies. Service blueprints are also useful for identifying root causes of service failures. For example, a long wait time might be caused by a slow database query or a bottleneck in staff scheduling, not something visible in a standard user journey map. Now, if you compare blueprints versus journey maps, you'll notice that a journey map focuses on user emotions, touch points, and the experience, while a service blueprint includes user experience and organizational processes. A journey map is often very high level, whereas a service blueprint is more detailed and systemic. A journey map is great for storytelling, while a service blueprint is better suited for implementation. Both tools are highly valuable and they often work best when used together. A service blueprint transforms invisible systems into a visible shared understanding. It's one of the most valuable tools in a service designer's toolkit. aligning user needs with organizational delivery, and helping you turn ideas into sustainable, scalable solutions.
Now let's get into co-creation and ideation. Once you've defined the problem and visualized the current service with a blueprint, it's time to generate new ideas. This is the part many people associate with design, creativity, sticky notes, and brainstorming. But in service design, ideation isn't just about solo or expert, it's co-creative. Co-creation means designing with people, not for them. It invites users, staff, partners, and other stakeholders to participate in generating ideas, exploring possibilities, and shaping solutions. This leads to better ideas, stronger buy-in, and services that reflect the complexity of real-world experiences. Co-creation is the process of involving diverse participants, especially users and service staff, in the creative and decision-making process of service design. Unlike traditional top-down approaches, co-creation values lived experience as expertise, encourages diverse perspectives and collaboration, builds empathy and ownership among stakeholders, surfaces hidden needs and creative ideas. This approach is especially effective in services where user trust, behavior, and frontline experience plays a major role, such as healthcare, education, and public services. To run effective co creation sessions, planning is essential. First, you have to define the focus. Start with a clear goal or problem statement. For example, how might we make check-in more welcoming? Or how might we reduce wait times while preserving care quality? Then choose your participants. Include a mix of end users or clients, frontline staff, managers or decision makers, technical or operational support teams. Diversity fuels innovation. Then create a safe environment. Encourage creativity and vulnerability by setting clear ground rules. No ideas are too wild. Use icebreakers or warm up exercises, and keep facilitation light, inclusive, and encouraging. Then use creative materials. Visual thinking helps unlock ideas. Provide post it notes and pens, whiteboards or digital canvases, templates, storyboards, or sketching guides. There are several ideation techniques that you could try. There's how might we brainstorming. Start with the how might we questions developed in your define stage and generate as many ideas as possible. Quantity over quality at first. Then there's crazy eights. Each person folds a sheet of paper into 8 squares and sketches one idea per square in 8 minutes. This focuses divergent thinking and rapid exploration. Do a role reversal. This is where you ask participants to imagine the experience from a totally different perspective, like a child, a robot, or a first time user, or a time constrained staff member. This can unlock creative empathy. There's also the scamper method. This is where you modify existing services by substituting in something else, combining different elements, adapting a feature, modifying or magnifying a particular feature, put something to another use, eliminate something, or reverse or rearrange. There's also dot voting. After ideation, participants will vote on the most promising ideas to narrow the focus. You can use different criteria like what's the impact on users, the ease of implementation, the cost of implementation, and alignment with strategy. Next, you want to turn your ideas into concepts. Raw ideas need refinement. Help participants combine similar ideas into bigger concepts, sketch service scenarios or storyboards, discuss possible challenges and enablers, create quick concept cards like title, description, who's it for, what problem it solves. This bridges the gap between creativity and implementation. There are several common pitfalls to avoid during co-creation. Too much structure kills spontaneity. Leave room for creative flow. Too little structure causes confusion. Provide prompts and time box your activities. Don't over rely on sticky notes. Encourage storytelling, drawing, and real conversation. Exclude operational voices is a big mistake. Don't forget to include the people who run and support the services because they often have key insights to offer. Co creation is not just a method, it's a mindset. It assumes that better services emerge when we design with people, not at them. It also builds relationships, trust, and momentum. People are more likely to adopt what they helped create. Co creation and ideation are the heart of design and the heart of designing better services. By inviting the right people into the process and using inclusive, creative methods, you tap into a broader well of ideas and build the foundation for solutions that work in the real world. Prototyping services. Ideation gives you ideas, prototyping brings them to life. Prototypes help you move from imagination to implementation without fully committing resources too early. In service design, this means building experiences, not just interfaces. And since services involve people, process, environments, and touchpoints, prototyping in service design requires more than wireframes or markups. It's about testing how the whole experience feels, flows, and functions. So, what is a service prototype? A prototype is a tangible or experiential representation of an idea that allows you to test assumptions and gather feedback before investing in full development. In service design, prototypes might include a mock front desk experience, a scripted role play of a new interaction, a paper version of a digital onboarding form, or a flow simulation showing how a new scheduling system works. The goal is not perfection, the goal is learning. So, why do we prototype services? It reduces risk. We can catch issues early and avoid costly mistakes. We can validate assumptions, find out what users and staff really want or need, engage stakeholders, demonstrate ideas in a concrete, interactive way that they can experience, and spark iteration. Use feedback to improve the concept before implementation. Unlike product, services are complex, dynamic, and people driven. Prototyping lets you test interactions, processes, and emotions, not just visuals. Service design uses a broad spectrum of prototyping techniques. Here are a few common formats. Role playing. Simulate a service interaction using scripts, actors, which could be your team members, and props. This helps test the tone, language, timing, and emotional impact. Example, a mock check-in at a new hospital kiosk with one person playing the receptionist and another the patient. There's also paper prototypes. These are sketch or print key touch points like a redesigned form, brochure, screen, or signage, and walk users through them. For example, if you have a new appointment booking interface, you could draw it up on some paper. There's also physical environment mockups. You can rearrange a space or use cardboard and tape to mock up a new physical setup. An example is simulating a redesigned service desk or queue system using furniture and signs. I was once in a workshop where they actually used Lego to do a new recycling facility, and it was not only incredibly useful, but also fun and adorable. There's surface staging and simulation, so you can act out an entire service experience from start to finish using props and participants. For example, a service safari role of the customer journey through a municipal permitting office. There's also digital click-throughs or MVPs. There are some software tools or low-code platforms where you can simulate digital touchpoints or workflows. So, for example, you could create a clickable prototype of a support chatbot or a scheduling app. So, how do you prototype a service? Step one, choose what to prototype. You can prototype a single interaction, for example, how a staff member greets a customer, a full journey, so that's start to finish, the first time user experience, or a backstage process, for example, a ticket routing system. Focus on the risky, unknown, or emotionally critical parts of the service. Step two is to build a low fidelity version. Don't worry about polish, use whatever you have. So, paper, markers, sticky notes, props from the office, chairs, signs, a slideshow, storyboard, Legos. Step three is to test it with real people. Invite users and staff to walk through the scenario and ask them to think out loud, react, and interact as they normally would. Step four is to observe and gather feedback. Watch for confusion, hesitation, frustration, moments of delight or ease, and then gaps or breakdowns in workflow. Ask questions and document insights. Step five is to iterate. Use what you learned and revise the prototype and test it again. And then eventually you're going to move into higher fidelity versions. Then keep repeating until you're ready to work on your full implementation. The best practices for service prototyping include prototyping early and often before investing a lot of time and money. Stay scrappy, use simple materials for quick turnarounds. Involve stakeholders, especially frontline staff and users. Test behavior, not just preference. Observe what people do, not just what they say. And fail safely. Prototyping is a low risk way to learn from failure. Prototyping is also a powerful collaboration and alignment tool. Seeing an idea in action builds shared understanding. It exposes blind spots and sparks creativity. It can turn abstract debates into focused conversations. There's a quote from someone somewhere that says a prototype is worth 1,000 meetings, which I definitely agree with. Prototype brings ideas to life quickly, cheaply, and in service design, where experiences are multidimensional and people powered, Prototyping is essential. It allows teams to explore, test, and refine ideas before the costly real world implementation. Next, we'll look at how to prototype those and put them in front of users to test and iterate and build better services. Now on to testing and iterating. Prototypes are only as useful as the insights they generate. That's why testing and iteration are essential to the service design process. This phase is where your team moves from guessing to knowing, gathering real feedback, observing real behavior, and making confident improvements. In this episode, we'll explore how to test service ideas, interpret feedback, and refine designs through iterative learning cycles. Testing reveals what works, what doesn't, and what needs to change. It also helps validate whether the service meets user needs, uncovers unintended consequences or friction points, challenges assumptions or biases from earlier stages, and refines the experience before the full scale launch. In services, testing must go beyond aesthetics or functionality. You are testing emotions, expectations, timing, processes, and people's ability to navigate complexity. So, what do you need to test? You don't need to test everything, especially at once. Focus on high risk or high impact parts of the service, moments of friction, confusion, or decision making, new processes, scripts, or interactions, or critical transitions, for example, from online to offline. If you're not sure where to start, test a user onboarding experience, the first 60 seconds of a key service moment, or anything that changes user behavior or expectations. There are different types of service testing. There's usability testing, where you ask users to interact with the service prototype while you observe, note where they get stuck or confused. For example, a user tries to book a community workshop using a new digital form. There's scenario walkthroughs. This is where users walk through a realistic scenario while team members act as staff or other roles. For example, you can simulate arriving at a redesigned clinic check in process using role play. There's surveys and feedback forms. So it's a quick and scalable way to gather opinions and reactions post testing. For example, after a prototype pilot, ask users to rate ease of use, clarity, and satisfaction. There's also interviews and debriefs. This is where you conduct one on one conversations after testing to gather more detailed feedback. You can ask questions like, what was clear or confusing? What did you expect that didn't happen? How did this experience make you feel? You can also run pilot programs where you test the service in a real world setting on a limited scale over a defined period of time. For example, trialing a new intake process in one department before rolling it out system wide. So, what do you look for during testing? One could be points of hesitation, confusion, or repeated questions, gaps in the process, like what happens next type of moments, misaligned expectations between users and staff, a breakdown between digital and human components, or any opportunities to simplify or clarify. Take detailed notes and record if you have permission for later review. Now you have to make sense of the feedback. Gather your team and get together what you just learned. Cluster your feedback based on themes or touch points. Identify recurring problems or friction points. Separate surface level feedback from systemic insights. And prioritize based on user impact and feasibility of change. For example, you could gather a feedback point that says, I didn't know where to go next based on the user feedback. And the insight is that the navigation or confirmation pages are unclear. And the design response could be that you add clear instructions or iconography. Next is the power of iteration. Iteration means improving your design based on feedback over and over again. Every test is an opportunity to clarify language, refine steps or timing, adjust interactions or flows, remove friction or overload. Each round of feedback helps you converge on a better experience, one that works for real people, not just your internal team. But when do you stop iterating? Iteration can feel endless, so set boundaries. Establish a goal for each test. Set a time limit, so 2 to 3 rounds of testing. Stop when changes yield diminishing returns. Align changes with time, budget, and rollout plans. You're not aiming for perfect, you're aiming for viable, testable, and meaningful. Testing and iteration helps you build services that don't just sound good, they actually work well for the people using and delivering them. The best services evolve through continuous feedback, reflection, and refinement. Next, we'll explore how to take your refined design and move to implementation and change management, where service design ideas become real world operations. Next up is implementation and change management. Designing a great service is one thing, bringing it to life in the real world is another one entirely. Many promising service designs fail not because the idea was flawed, but because the transition from prototype to reality was poorly managed. Implementation is where new services meet existing systems, policies, technologies, and people. It's where resistance shows up, complexity emerges, and careful planning becomes critical. This episode will help you move from design to delivery with a strong focus on change management, operational readiness, and sustainable adoption. Why implementation requires its own strategy. Service design is not finished when the blueprint is printed or the prototype is approved. In fact, the real work often begins at implementation. Teams must consider how new processes fit within or challenge current workflows, who needs to be trained, resourced, or supported, what technology, tools, or systems are required, how to handle resistance or fear of change, and how success will be measured and sustained. There are several common implementation pitfalls like handing off the design without support, lack of staff engagement or training, unrealistic expectations about timeline or resources, failure to align with existing systems or policies, and change fatigue in the organization. Service design is successful only when delivery teams are fully equipped and brought in. From prototype to service, there are several key steps. Step one, align on vision and scope. Ensure all stakeholders understand what is being implemented and why. Use your service blueprint, journey map, and testing insights to create a shared picture of success. Step two, plan for delivery. Develop a realistic implementation roadmap that includes timelines, milestones, roles, responsibilities, dependencies, such as approvals, systems, and vendors, a communications plan, and budget and resourcing. Step three, engage stakeholders early and often. Change is more likely to stick when people feel involved, heard, and prepared. Work closely with that. Some examples could include frontline staff, middle managers, IT, technical support, and policy or privacy and compliance teams. Step four is train and support. Prepare teams for the new service by providing hands on training and job shadowing, offering support channels such as FAQs, super users, internal champions, coaching, setting clear expectations and roles. Change isn't just technical, it's emotional. Support adoption by being empathetic and responsive. Step five, pilot before scaling. Before a full rollout, run a limited pilot in a controlled environment. Gather feedback, measure outcomes, and refine where needed. Change management in service design is special because it's a structured approach to helping individuals and organizations transition from the current state to the desired future state. In service design, this means communicating the why behind the change clearly and frequently, identifying champions who can lead teams from within, anticipating resistance and addressing it with empathy, celebrating early wins to build momentum, monitoring and adjusting after launch. There are several change management models like ADKAR or Kotter's 8 steps to guide your approach. Tools for implementation and change. So you want a service manual, documentation that shows how the service is delivered, including rules, protocols, and scripts. Training materials. This could include workshops, slides, role play exercises, or LMS modules for staff. An implementation tracker. This is a live document to monitor status, risk, and dependencies. Feedback loops, mechanisms for staff and users to provide input after launch. Change impact map. Visualize what's changing, who's affected, and what support is needed. Managing complexity. Real world implementation often uncovers conflicting priorities, political tensions, infrastructure limitations, and policy blockers. Anticipate complexity by involving decision makers early, documenting risks, and maintaining flexibility. Consider forming a cross functional working group to troubleshoot issues as they arise. Then there's sustaining the change. Implementation isn't the finish line, it's the start of continuous improvement. After launch, measure against the success criteria defined earlier, continue to gather user and staff feedback, track key metrics like wait times, user satisfaction, resolution rates. Make adjustments to ensure the service stays relevant and responsive. Successful service design doesn't end with a prototype, it ends with real service that people use and value. Implementation and change management ensure that great ideas become meaningful action. In the last episode, we'll explore how to measure success and establish a feedback loop to support long term service excellence. For this last part of the episode, measuring service success. You've researched the problem, co created solutions, prototyped and tested ideas, and implemented a new or improved service. Congratulations. But how do you know it's working? In service design, success isn't just about delivering a service, it's about delivering value. That means the service should meet user needs, support organizational goals, and be sustainable over time. Measuring success gives you the insights you need to celebrate what's working, improve what isn't, and demonstrate impact to stakeholders. Without measurement, teams can't learn or adapt, leaders can't justify investment, users may silently struggle, services can drift from their purpose over time. Measurement helps close that feedback loop. It turns service delivery into a living system, one that evolves with real world use. So there's no single formula, but effective service measurement usually considers three dimensions. One is the user experience. Do users find the service helpful, clear, and satisfying? Are they able to accomplish their goals with ease? Metrics might include Net Promoter Score, or NPS, customer satisfaction, or CSAT, task completion rate, help requests or complaints, wait times, and friction points. Two is operational efficiency. Is the service being delivered smoothly behind the scenes? Are resources being used effectively? Metrics might include time to serve, so the average case resolution time, staff workload or handoff delays, drop offs or rework rates, utilization of tools and systems. Third is strategic or business impacts. Is the service contributing to broader organization goals? Metrics might include increased adoption or engagement, reduced costs or errors, improved retention or repeat usage, equity or access improvements. How to measure success. Establish clear KPIs. KPIs are key performance indicators, and they should be aligned with the original goals of the service. For example, if the goal was to improve onboarding, an example KPI might be the time from sign up to first successful action. If the goal was to increase satisfaction, the KPI might be CSAT score post interaction to see an improvement, hopefully. If the goal was to reduce errors in processing, the KPI might be number of rework cases per 100 users. And if the goal was to expand access to services, the KPI might be percentage of usage among priority populations. Use a number of methods. Combine quantitative metrics and qualitative interviews, open feedback, data. Numbers tell you what's happening, stories tell you why. Collect data at key moments. Don't wait until the end. Use surveys, system logs, and interviews immediately after service touchpoints, during onboarding and follow up, at quarterly or annual interviews for trend analysis. Build feedback into the service. The most sustainable services embed feedback mechanisms into the user journey. For example, a 2-click satisfaction rating after booking, a short pulse survey sent after a key milestone, an optional report and issue button, or an anonymous staff feedback box on internal tools. This helps teams monitor and adjust in real time rather than relying on major redesigns every few years. Using dashboards and reports. You can create simple dashboards for internal visibility. Display your selected KPIs by week, month, or quarter, whatever makes sense. Highlight trends, red flags, and improvements. Share updates with frontline staff and leadership. Keep it actionable. A good service dashboard supports quick decisions, not just compliance. When the numbers don't tell the full story, not everything that matters can be measured easily. Some outcomes, like trust, accessibility, or emotional tone, require ongoing observation and dialogue. Stay close to frontline staff. They're often the first to notice when something feels off. Also, user stories. Case studies can illustrate impact more powerfully than charts. And community partners. They may surface barriers you didn't expect. Iterate often based on your results. Maybe that's monthly or quarterly or yearly, depending on your nature of your product and service. Use the insights to fuel continuous improvement. Celebrate wins and share them widely. Identify low performing areas and prioritize adjustments there. Revisit your service blueprint to reflect changes. Keep testing and evolving in small cycles. Measuring service success ensures that design translates into real world value. It turns service design from a one time initiative into a mindset of ongoing improvement and responsiveness. By embedding metrics and feedback loops into your practice, you can help create services that grow stronger over time, services that truly work for the people they're meant to serve.